This impressive Filipino girl, Jasmine, will leave you speechless. Jasmine shocks Simon Cowell. Jasmine grew up in a small Filipino neighborhood where the days were simple, but the dreams were huge. Her house was modest, with thin wooden walls that carried every sound and every whisper and every song she sang. She was the kind of girl who didn't talk much, but felt everything deeply, and music was the only language she trusted, more than her own heartbeat. Her mother worked double shifts at a nearby market, and her father drove tricycles in the burning heat just to put food on the table. Yet no matter how tired they were, they always found a way to smile at their daughter when she sang, because in her voice was a softness that could calm storms and a power that could lift hearts. Every night, she would climb to the small rooftop of their home and look up at the sky, as if the stars were waiting for her performance. She would sing quietly at first, then louder, as the wind carried her voice across the sleeping streets, dreaming of stages she had only seen on television. She wanted to stand there one day and prove that even a girl from the simplest corner of the Philippines could shine bright enough to be seen around the world. The day she saw the audition announcement on her cracked phone screen, her heart raced so fast she thought it might leap out of her chest. The world's biggest talent show is holding open auditions, and for the first time, the possibility of being felt close enough to touch. Her parents didn't have money to send her abroad, but Jasmine had a voice and a determination that refused to be ignored. She joined online qualifiers, singing in front of a borrowed microphone, and praying that her voice would travel farther than her circumstances. When she received the email saying she passed the first round, her mother cried quietly, and her father held her shoulders, telling her this was the moment to fight for everything she ever dreamed of after months of saving. Borrowing and sacrificing what little they had, Jasmine finally stepped aboard a plane, for the first time in her life, heading toward a future she had only dared to imagine in whispers. When Jasmine arrived at the audition venue, she felt like the world suddenly became too big for her. Small frame towering walls, bright banners, rushing contestants with sparkling clothes, and rehearsed confidence. Everything looked loud and overwhelming. She clutched her small bag tightly. As people pushed past her, she felt invisible among thousands who seemed more prepared, more experienced, and more certain that they belonged there. She walked backstage where voices echoed and shoes clicked against polished floors. She watched performers warming up with vibratos and high notes that made her question if she truly had what it took. Doubt crept into her mind slowly, like a cold hand grabbing her from behind. But then she remembered her father's words about courage, and she remembered her mother's tired smile, and the nights she spent singing under the stars. She had come too far to let fear swallow her. When her number was finally called, she felt her knees weaken, but she forced herself to walk toward the doors that led to the stage. The faint sound of the audience reached her ears, and her heartbeat matched the rhythm of her footsteps. A staff member smiled at her and asked if she was ready. And though Jasmine wanted to say no, she nodded anyway, because sometimes bravery isn't loud. Sometimes it's just choosing to move forward, even when everything inside you trembles. She took a deep breath and stepped into the blinding lights of the stage. And suddenly she wasn't just Jasmine from a small Filipino neighborhood anymore. She was a girl standing before the world, ready to show them the voice she carried. Like a treasure, the judges stared at her with professional calmness, but Jasmine could see the curiosity in their eyes, especially Simon Cowell, who looked at her with that familiar mixture of skepticism and expectation. He asked her where she was from, and her voice shook as she answered, "I'm from the Philippines." The audience gave a small cheer, and Jasmine felt a spark of comfort. Simon asked what she would be singing, and she took another breath before giving the title. She could feel her hands trembling, but she kept them still by pressing her fingers together. When the music started, she felt a chill running down her spine. For a moment, she forgot the cameras, the crowd, the pressure. She remembered only the sound of her own voice, drifting through the warm Filipino nights. She closed her eyes and let the first note escape, her lips soft and shaky at first, but growing stronger with each second. Her tone filled the massive hall, like sunlight breaking through an overcast sky. The audience leaned in almost instinctively, drawn to the purity in her voice. Simon's expression changed suddenly, from indifference to curiosity. Jasmine felt her confidence rise as the chorus approached. She poured her entire soul into that moment. Every struggle, every sacrifice, every hunger-filled night, every dream that kept her alive. She released it all through her voice, and it soared higher than she ever had before. The audience gasped, some placing their hands over their mouths as her voice climbed effortlessly to a high note that echoed like a prayer. Across the room, the judges exchanged looks of disbelief. as if they hadn't expected such power. From someone so gentle and unassuming, Simon leaned forward with his eyebrows raised, and for a split second Jasmine wondered if she had actually changed his expression, in a way very few contestants ever did. By the time Jasmine reached the bridge of the song, the entire hall was silent. No one breathed too loudly. No one dared to blink. It felt as if her voice had wrapped every heart in the room with a gentle but unbreakable thread. She wasn't just singing anymore. She was telling her entire life story through melody. She was sharing the weight of her struggles, the warmth of her hopes, the silent nights she spent singing alone, wishing someone would listen. Her voice quivered with emotion, but never faltered. The audience could feel her sincerity in every note. And when she delivered the final, powerful section of the song, her body shook with the force of it. Tears formed in her eyes as she pushed her voice to its highest point, hitting a note so clean and so unexpectedly strong that the crowd rose to their feet almost instantly. The sound of applause thundered through the hall, but Jasmine couldn't hear anything except the pounding of her own heart. She finished the final line with a trembling breath and stood still, overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face. Simon's mouth was slightly open in shock, and Jasmine never thought she would witness such a reaction. From him, the other judges were applauding wildly, but Simon remained frozen for a moment, as if he needed to process what he had just heard. Jasmine waited in silence, afraid to speak, afraid to ruin the magic that had settled in the room. She held her hands close to her chest, feeling the vibrations of the last note still lingering inside her. Then Simon finally stood up slowly. The crowd erupted even louder, because they knew how rare it was to see him rise. For a contestant, Jasmine's eyes widened in disbelief. She covered her mouth with shaking hands, and Simon looked directly at her with a softened expression she had never seen on television. He told her that he didn't expect that voice from someone so young and humble, and that her performance was one of the most surprising and emotional auditions he had witnessed in years. Jasmine burst into tears as the judges praised her. One judge said her voice didn't just fill the room, it filled people's hearts. Another said she had the kind of talent that comes once in a generation. But nothing prepared her for what happened next. Simon walked back to his seat, looked at the other judges, then looked back at Jasmine and reached his hand toward the golden buzzer. Jasmine felt the air leave her lungs. The audience screamed louder than ever. Her parents, watching from home, would later say they felt their entire world stop. In that moment, Simon pressed the golden buzzer, and golden confetti exploded around her, like a shimmering rain of dreams finally coming true. Jasmine fell to her knees crying as the music swelled. The judges rushed toward her, smiling and comforting her, and she realized she had done it. She had taken her quiet little dream from a small Filipino rooftop and brought it to the world stage. In the most breathtaking way, as the confetti floated down, Jasmine saw flashes of her life play before her eyes. The nights she went to sleep hungry. The mornings she helped her mother carry vegetables to the market. The evenings she listened to her father's tired voice, telling her he believed in her, even when she doubted herself. Everything she endured suddenly felt worth it. The audience continued cheering her name, and even backstage, crew members clapped for her with admiration. When she walked off the stage, she was met with hugs from strangers, tears of joy from staff members, and cameras capturing her raw emotion. But beneath the excitement, she felt something deeper, a sense of belonging she had never felt before. She realized that her journey was not just about dreams or fame, it was about every Filipino child who sings in their small rooms, hoping someone hears them. It was about proving that talent has no boundaries, no limits, and no preferred address. She represented not just herself, but her entire country, and she carried that pride with grace as she wiped her tears and smiled through the confetti. In the days that followed, her audition clip went viral across social media. Millions watched her emotional performance and shared it with captions saying she restored their faith in raw talent. Filipino communities around the world celebrated her, as if she were their own daughter or sister. Her parents received calls from relatives they hadn't heard from in years, congratulating them with tearful voices. Jasmine received messages from young singers who said she inspired them to believe in themselves. And while the attention was overwhelming, she remained humble. She kept telling interviewers that she was just grateful for the chance to sing. But in quiet moments, she let herself feel the depth of what she had achieved. She remembered the girl on the rooftop, singing to the stars, and she realized she wasn't singing alone anymore. The whole world was listening. On the night she returned home months later, people gathered in her neighborhood, carrying handmade banners and small candles. Her parents rushed to hug her, and she held them tightly, as if she never wanted to let go. The same place where she once sang alone now echoed with cheers, and Jasmine looked up at the sky. The same sky she sang to for years, this time feeling that the stars were truly listening. She promised herself she would keep singing, not for fame or applause, but for the little girl she once was, the one who kept dreaming, even when life made it difficult. Her journey was far from over, yet she already knew one thing with certainty. The girl from a small Filipino neighborhood had become a light big enough to reach the world, and her story was just beginning.